Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another enlightening episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Phil Better, the podcast mogul, and today's guest has an inspiring journey of entrepreneurship, growth, and intentional living to share with us. Our guest is a seasoned entrepreneur whose path to success began with a leap of faith into the world of business at a very young age. His entrepreneurial journey kicked off when he first started his business as a painter at the age of 21, while navigating the challenges of university life. Despite lacking formal training or guidance, our guest thrived on the freedom and independence of being his own boss, shaping his business to align with his ideal lifestyle. But it was during his globe-trotting adventures, exploring 40 countries over 4 transformative years, that our guest's perspective on business and life truly evolved. Upon returning, our guest's career soared as he transitioned into corporate business coaching and training for the Wow One Day painting, where he honed his skills and amassed invaluable real-world experience. As a coach and a trainer, our guest empowered 35 new painting franchises across North America to a remarkable revenue milestone, averaging over $400,000. Yes, that's $400,000 in their first year, a testament to his dedication to supporting others' growth and success. However, the relentless pace of business travel eventually took its toll, leading our guest to confront burnout and severe insomnia, which I can say I have had. Seeking renewal, he embarked on a life-changing journey to Australia with his partner, where he found the space to recharge, reflect, and redefine his path forward. From the tranquil shores of the Great Barrier Reef, our guest serendipitously embarked on a new chapter, becoming an owner and management consulting at Trailblaze Partners. Over the years, he has lent his expertise to hundreds of businesses, from startups to major corporations, facilitating the growth through leadership development, people management, and cultural transformation. Not content with merely consulting, our guest's passion for coaching and empowering small business owners led him to establish the intentional business. Here, he tackles the pervasive challenge of balancing business success with personal fulfillment, helping entrepreneurs claim their time, freedom, and joy. Today, our guest resides in the picturesque coastal town of Gibson on the Sunnyside Coast in BC, very jealous, where he savors the simple pleasures of beach life and quality time with loved ones. His commitment to living with intention prioritizes relationships and well-being, shines through its every aspect of his life. Providing success isn't just about business. It's about crafting a life you love. Without further ado, let us dive into the wisdom and insight of my guest, Jordon Tait. Jordon, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. That was an amazing intro. You really hit the mark.
I have to. I'm a hype man. I have to hype you up before the show. Like I constantly say, I'm a fan of hip hop, and there's always that hype man before the main act comes on, the singer comes on. That's who I think I am. I'm the hype man as the host of this show. You're the main star. So Jordon, welcome to the show.
Well, you nailed it. And I don't even know what's left to share after all of that. That's my whole life story there.
We got your whole life story, but we don't got the little minutiae that we're going to jump in today. So Jordon, we're going to start with the first question. Like always, why did you become an entrepreneur?
I became an entrepreneur for the freedom. And I got there from a different experience than most people, where I had my own business before I had ever really got into having a career. And my first business allowed me to work 8 months a year and then travel the other 4, because I got to choose my hours, choose what I charged. And I loved that freedom and autonomy and the lifestyle that I was able to have. And then I went and got as you hit on, a corporate job. And I gave up that freedom for 4 years. And it was a good trade because my skills accelerated. I learned a lot and I really grew. But by the time I finished that period, and as you hit on again, I was burning out. I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't taking care of my health. I realized I needed to reorient my career and my life around that freedom that is so critical to me for my happiness. And that's why I'm a business owner. And that's also what I help other business owners achieve, is more freedom in their business.
I love that. And again, it's the common theme. I think that's the one theme that threads through all entrepreneurs is this desire for freedom, be it financial freedom, time freedom, freedom to do whatever you want, freedom from the stress of business, if you will, or having to make money. Because being your own boss, you can hire the people that can do all the stuff that we don't like to do, like editing a podcast. Not the best, most cost-effective time of your life. So you hire someone to do it. So I love that you jump between. You went to the corporate world after being an entrepreneur, and then you're like, whoa, wait, no, corporate world is really not for me. And you jumped out of there back into the out of the 9 to 5 grind. My question is, what made you decide to go to the corporate world when you had a successful business that allowed you to work 8 months of the year while you could travel the other 4? Like, that's a little confusing to me.
Definitely. And it was a very difficult decision in my life, but my painting business, I kind of felt like I'd hit the end of the road on where I wanted to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I didn't want to spend my whole life building a painting business. It wasn't fulfilling me. It was providing the money I needed to live and the freedom, but it wasn't fulfilling. And I knew I was capable of more. So that leap into corporate, becoming a business coach and a trainer, helping other people build and launch painting businesses, gave me that nice stepping stone upwards and truly incredible growth from the organization I was in. And really, that's when I discovered my passion for coaching, which I wasn't even aware of when I was running a painting business. So even though it kind of feels like a weird step to give up that freedom and give up being your own boss, at the time, it was a huge step up in my career. And it set the foundation for where I am today, running my own coaching business and helping other business owners run their business. So for me, it all came down to what are the trade-offs. And that's how I assess every single decision in my life, is what are the trade-offs and what's missing in my current scenario. So at that point, it was passion and a new path. And then when I left there, it was reconnecting to the freedom and autonomy that I'd traded for that.
I love that. And I love how, in essence, you invested in yourself by taking this corporate gig, because without taking this corporate gig, you wouldn't have upskilled and you found your passion of coaching and helping people. Like that was a huge thing. That was a major investment into yourself. I'm wondering, apart from that giant investment in yourself, is there another situation or another habit that you've developed that is a huge investment in yourself that may help others who are listening to this podcast?
I'm huge on habits. I mean, I really, truly believe my current lifestyle and my success is built on the habits that I picked up in my early 20s. I'm 33 now, but for me, I try to build habits around everything: my health, the way I run my business, my relationships. And for me, it's about like stacking. So it's identify one that will help improve your life. And, some examples for me would be daily exercise, daily meditation, reading, journaling, different things like that really accelerated both my personal growth and my professional development. And then outside of habits, it's all my biggest leaps in life have come with the support of a coach. So I really believe that the fastest way to achieve the growth and transformation we want is with the support of someone who's either been there and done it before. They can help us understand the path and avoid the pitfalls, or someone who can help us get out of our own way, because often we know what we want, and even often we know how to get it. We know what the steps are. The thing that is hardest is actually getting out of our own way, getting out of the fear, the doubt, and the beliefs that we hold. And that's where a coach has always helped me, because you may not be able to see it today, but 8 years ago, I was terrified of public speaking, and I hated the idea of marketing myself. And I would never go on a podcast, even though I love listening to them. But through working with a coach, I was able to overcome that fear, as an example.
I like that. I like not only investing in a coach that can help you, and as entrepreneurs, we know we are the problem in most of our business. We are the bottleneck, if anything. So I love how he's saying with a coach, you can remove yourself from that bottleneck and open it up so the flow of energy, the flow of money, the flow of success can come to you. And I also like how you, I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. And the fear of public speaking, like, I never understood that. As someone who always loved talking in front of people, I hate hearing my own voice, but I love the sound of my voice, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
But what was it about public speaking? Like, you were painting, so you had to market yourself. And so you technically had to do like promotions and marketing. What was it about it that you didn't like?
So what I uncovered with my coach was that it was a fear of judgment, and a judgment of, I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to sound stupid. I'm not going to look confident. And to avoid that fear of judgment, I just didn't do it.
Oh.
And the fear, it wasn't like speaking with someone one-to-one. I've always been comfortable there. It was more the second I was in front of more than a few people in a room, I would start to clam up. And that's where that corporate job really helped break through that, because I was often leading training seminars, workshops, speaking at conferences. And each time I was terrified going in. I was sweaty, like I could barely breathe, but I would get up and I would do it, and I would realize that was not very good, but it was slightly better than the last time I did it. And no one shouted at me, and no one told me it was bad. And really, I realized I'm my own worst critic. So now it's become more about do the reps. And, you know, similar to if you're learning how to hit a basketball shot, you're going to miss more times than you hit, but you just keep shooting until you hit more consistently. And I think that's the same with essentially any skill. The harder part is when that skill is public facing, when you're learning in public. I went through this more recently with been writing posts every day and posting on LinkedIn and social media. And the first few I did were really hard. I hated putting myself into them, hated putting them out there. I had so much fear. And then now I can put up 3 or 4 a week without ever thinking about it. But it's because I've just done the reps.
So one of the things you learned from your coach, I would presume, and I don't mean to be presumptuous, is that the more you do it, the less fear comes of it.
Yeah. What I say is fear is the gatekeeper on our growth. And I held myself back a lot throughout my life. I prevented myself from doing the thing I really wanted to do because I was afraid of failure, of, judgment, of whatever else it was. But what I learned was the more action you take, the quieter the fear gets. And so going back to my focus on habits, if there's something that I'm afraid of that I want to overcome, I figure out how can I challenge this consistently as often as possible. So, writing as an example, 8 months ago, I'd never really written a post and shared it on social media as much because I was afraid of self-promotion. I committed to, I'm going to write 3 a week, and I'm going to do that for a year. And now I've written hundreds of posts. And again, I don't think about it because I just show up and do it. So it's building the habit. And that's helped me break through the inertia of, I'm afraid, I don't want to do it, but it's important to me. So when I'm coaching people through fears, what I always say is this fear bigger than the dream that you have? And as long as that fear is bigger than your dream, you won't take action. But once you realize that the only thing between you and what you want in life is your fear, and that you have the ability to overcome it without ending your life or breaking or anything, then everything gets more exciting because now you can actually start to really grow.
I love that. Now, it's interesting because you're bringing in some points that I don't think the experiences that some of our guests would have with dealing with coaches is probably different, given that you started very young, your entrepreneurial journey at 21. How do you feel starting so young has shaped you as a coach? The experiences that you had as a young entrepreneur, building your first business, all that, how do you feel that has affected you as a coach today and when you're meeting with your clients?
Wow, I love that. No one's ever asked me that, but what comes to mind is I know how hard the waves of growing a business are, like the emotional highs and lows, the stress, the pressure, the fear. And I rode that really hard. Like I said, alone the first few years. I didn't have a coach, had no training, and I was basically just learning through trial and error and making a lot of mistakes. And it caused me a lot of time and money and frustration. And that's where I now love to help people, is helping them smooth out that roller coaster so that the highs are still high, but then the lows are less painful and less stressful. And to try to avoid them in the first place by saying, if you're at this stage and this is the thing you're trying to do, I know exactly what you need to do because I've done it myself before and I've trialed it with hundreds of other owners and I've seen what works, where people get stuck, what doesn't work. And I'm trying to smooth out that path for people, help them find the easiest path to where they're going with the least effort and pain and frustration.
I like that. I like how you're trying to save them from the hurt that comes with being an entrepreneur, the bruises and scars that some of us have from our journey and battles that we faced as an entrepreneurial journey. I'm I'm curious because you've had like technically like three parts to your life and your journey as an entrepreneur. You had your youthful entrepreneurial journey, you had your corporate life, and now you're back into being a coach, or back to being an entrepreneur, if you will, helping other entrepreneurs, other business owners. Um, do you see another possible pivot to maybe a different domain, different type of coaching, or maybe jumping back into the corporate world to upgrade your skills to the next level? What do you see kind of like in the future for you?
So I actually started my current business 8 months ago. And prior to that, for 3 years, I was a management consultant and partner. So I was growing another business and it was an amazing experience. And again, I learned so much through the process. But what I learned through that experience was making more money than I'd ever made before. I was working good hours and I had pretty good flexibility. And I mostly enjoyed what I was working on. But as I got deeper and deeper and started to ask that question of where do I go from here in my career, the thing that became very clear to me was I'm not as passionate about consulting, not as passionate about project management and some of the things I was dealing with there. I'm really all in on coaching. I love providing that impact on people's lives, and I love learning and developing my own abilities. So I left that business, not because I wasn't happy, not because I wasn't earning good money or had the freedom, but because I identified that my biggest passion and the thing I find most enjoyable is coaching. And so that's where I'm at now. And my goal is that this is what I do for, the next 20 years. And there'll be iterations within that. I'd like to write a book and build courses and host retreats and do workshops and all these other things, but all within the guise of coaching to help people build better businesses and live better lives. And I will never go back to corporate. I know that very clearly because I would never give up the freedom and control of my time again, for any amount of money, because that's the best part of building your own business is you build your own freedom. And then it's really hard to imagine giving that up again after I've already done that once before.
I could imagine how difficult it would be to relapse into being a corporate 9-to-5er again, or your own version of 9-to-5, given the amount of freedom that you now have reclaimed in your life and probably increasing. Um, with that said, like you're working with clients who may be stuck, maybe facing difficulties that you have you faced yourself. What is possibly the most, maybe not the most common, I'm going to use the word common, but it can't really come to the word right now, common problem or issue that you see your clients face when they come talk to you in the last like 8 months, or even through your whole journey as a consulting coach type thing?
So there's a larger problem, which is kind of more of a pain, and then I'll explain why that happened. So the reason I created my current business and the core problem that I want to help people solve is that so many people start their business for the reasons we're talking about, for freedom, for enjoyment of their life, for more balance and control. And then as they build, it gets harder and harder, and they get busier. And then the business is succeeding, and then they get busier. And a lot of people, it's a natural progression. They find themselves working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, never taking a vacation, never having that freedom that they thought the business was going to provide. And I was becoming a victim of your own success. You've just got too much. Your business is growing beyond your capacity to handle it. So that's a huge pain, because if you start your business for freedom and enjoyment of life and balance, and then you lose all those in the pursuit of growing it, it gets really frustrating and difficult. And I've seen most people hit that within 3 to 5 years of launching a business. Some people can stay there for a long time, but that's this plateau that unless you figure out how to break through, your business will always take over your life. So the reason this happens is because when you start out, you've got a ton of time and you're not earning a lot of money. So you're building it and you're just putting in as much effort as you can, and you get busier and busier, and it starts to grow and you're happy. So you just keep putting in more time, and there's a big return on the effort you're putting in. But then eventually you get to the point where you are maxed out, and it doesn't matter how many hours you put in, you just can't keep up because the workload has become unsustainable and you're trying to do too much yourself. And so the biggest trap that people fall into is they try to do it all themselves for too long, and they don't hire support sooner or more frequently to help buy back their time and freedom as they grow. And it's a big challenge for people, because hiring costs money, it takes time, it can be really frustrating, and not everyone feels capable of managing and leading a team. But what I always share with people is, until you have support, you will be stuck where you are, unless you're willing to pull back on your business, slow down your growth. So it's a very challenging place that people end up in, and that's what I love to help them break free from. Is I want them to be able to grow a bigger business, but while working less hours. And I want them to have that freedom to take a vacation again. And when my client get there and they're like, hey, I'm going to be away the next 3 weeks. I'm going to Colombia with my partner. I'm like, yes, like that's what this is about. Your life, not just your work. But it's really easy to attach all your significance and your self-worth to the size of your business, the size of your bank account, and get totally railroaded on missing the part of your life that the business was supposed to provide.
I love that. And I think now that I've been interviewing multiple entrepreneurs, I'm at nearly 500 now. It's insane. I love how we're redefining success. Because before, success was your bank account, your house, your title, right? That was the success that I grew up as an elder millennial, and probably a lot of people who are listening grew up with. And now every time I get a new entrepreneur on the podcast, it's a redefining of success. It's success on our own terms. What is it that we as individuals want? That's our success, be it a vacation to Colombia, or having the opportunity to recharge ourselves in Australia after a very tumultuous period. Pardon. And that speaks volumes about the importance of self-care and balance. How do you maintain that healthy work-life integration now? And what advice do you have for entrepreneurs dealing with burnout?
Well, you hit on it perfectly. When you define your own version of success, it becomes a lot easier to achieve. And it's easy when you're young, in your 20s, and you're getting out of university and you're getting into your first jobs to chase what everyone is selling you as success. The dollars you earn, the hours you work, the things you own. What's fun is once you start to get those things, and you start to look at how am I happier? Is my life better? Some things do add value and some don't. So an exercise I really encourage people to do there is just define what is success to you, and ask yourself, like 3 to 5 years from now, if everything is perfect in my life, what does my life look like? And there may be some things around money and things, but I bet you a lot more is about time and freedom and enjoyment and family and all these other things. So that's kind of a side angle from what you asked about. How do I manage work-life balance and escape or avoid burnout? And this, because I hit such deep burnout, for about 8 months in my last corporate job, I'm super clear that I will never go back there again because I was not at my best in my life or in my work. I was dragging myself through days, and it was the low point in my life, realistically. So when I came out of that, what I did was wrote down some rules for myself, kind of defining my own success in the future, in any job or career or business that I build. How do I want to work and live? And what I created for myself was I'm definitely done with business travel, because that was the primary reason for my burnout, was spending weeks and weeks every month on the road in hotels and airports and stuff. So I'm done with business travel and I won't do it anymore. Number two was I won't work more than 40 hours a week, because I truly believe if you put in a good 40 hours, you deserve the rest of your day and your week to live your life. And realistically, now I work like 30 to 35 hours a week because there's just too much good stuff to do outside of work.
Yeah.
And then third was I don't want to give up control of my schedule and my time. So I don't want to have to beg someone for a day off, and I don't want to have to beg someone to get off work an hour early so I can go do something with friends. So by becoming my own boss, I set those as my initial goals. And the way that I uphold them is I've got a really clear structure for my schedule, where I don't start work before 8:30 or 9, and I finish work at 4 every single day. And I've stuck to that for years. And if there's more work to do, I'll do it the next day. And then what I also do is Fridays are my internal day where I don't have client meetings, I don't have project meetings or anything. So if I want a 3-day weekend, I take it and I don't have to ask anybody. And if I want to have a busy, productive day on my business, then it's there for me.
I love it. I love how you once you left and you were relaxing on the nice sandy beaches of Australia, avoiding the sharks, apparently, and the jellyfish. I hear they have a problem with sharks and jellyfish and drop bears too. I heard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the drop bears will get you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard. I love how you defined it. You wrote down the rules to your life. And I think that's something really important that before we jump into entrepreneurship, that's something that everybody should do. We are coming to the end, which I hate because I feel like we just started talking, Jordon, getting to know each other. And so I'm going to invite you back in a little bit because you just started, like you said, 8 months in. I want to see what you're looking at like in 18 months into the business and how that is. So we're going to definitely have you back on. But before we go, I would love to know, I have your 10-year-old self right here running around full of energy and sugar. Sorry, I gave him a whole bunch of candy. But I would love to know, what is one piece of advice you would love to be able to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
I would say if you ever feel stuck or frustrated or unhappy in a situation, change something fast. And I used to fixate on making the right decision, and I would stay stuck for months, for years, because I was like, I have to think of the perfect way out before I can change. What I've learned over time is that just experiment with different things. If you're unhappy in your job, try thinking about what are some other jobs that I could try, or other skills or side hustles. If you're unhappy in your relationship, don't waste time stuck. Talk about it. Like, change something, because I think that it's very easy for us to get used to discomfort and just accept that this is good enough or this is difficult, but I'll just keep going. But everything in my life has always been better when I make that change that I was waiting for. And on the other side, you uncover new ways of living and enjoying your life.
I love it. Great piece of advice to all our younger selves, or to any age we are. Don't stay stuck if you're unhappy. I think that's some amazing advice. Jordon, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you if they're looking for an amazing coach for a more intentional business, looking for that freedom, if they resonate with you. So I'm going to jump off stage here. Please let my audience know where they can connect with you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. So if any of this has resonated with you, and either you're thinking about launching a business or you're in that stage I hit on, which is you're just so busy and overwhelmed trying to grow your business that you can't keep up and your life is suffering, I can totally help you. And I can do that through coaching. So You can find me on LinkedIn at Jordon Tait, or you can find me at www.theintentionalbusiness.ca. And in either one of those places, you'll find a link to book a call with me. And it's a free opportunity to connect and talk through the problems you're facing and the goals you have. And I'll try to give you a couple steps so that you can achieve those faster and with less of that stress and overwork.
I love it. Jordon, I want to thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, and giving us such great pieces of advice for both our 10-year-old self and our 33-year-old self. So Jordon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Phil. I love chatting about this stuff, and you ask such good questions.
I thank you so much for that. Again, an amazing compliment. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below because I'll be able to connect with Jordon. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank Jordon again for being an amazing guest. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.